Jerseys of Hope is a nonprofit committed to inspiring a sense of community and well-being in hospitals through the donation of athletic jerseys to be worn by patients rooting for their favorite team. In the past 7 years, Jerseys of Hope has given out over 2,000 jerseys to lift the spirits of hospital patients. They have impacted the needy in 4 countries and 11 states. Please visit jerseysofhope.org to learn more. We're so honored to partner with Jerseys of Hope and be a small part of the large impact they make. Welcome to the Unscripted Podcast. This is Caitlin. Each episode, my Uncle Aaron interviews guests that are living their lives unscripted. The song you are hearing is the music from our dear friends Tori and Shauna. You can find their music wherever you stream your favorite songs. For now, from his studio, here's my Uncle Aaron.
Welcome back to Unscripted from my Jerseys of Hope studios here in Hilliard, Ohio. This is exciting, and I don't even know where to start. Elliott, do you want to introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
Sure. I'm Elliott Wallach. I'm president of Edify Films. We're a distributor. Our focus is on family and faith-friendly films, and we're also a production company, and we're excited to be here to talk about our first theatrical release, God of Heaven and Earth.
And before we jumped on, you were dealing with something else. You're involved in another project, right?
Correct. We were distributing a TV show called Wind Calls the Heart. It's astoundingly moving. They're actually filming its 11th season. And I was kidding that I feel like with my own circle of friends, I feel like there's 2 kinds of people that have never heard of the show. And then all of a sudden somebody that I'm like cooler than a submarine commander because I'm, doing the distribution, and then we've met the actors and they're just phenomenal. But the fun thing about it, a lot of people out there may remember Michael Landon, who played Pa, right? Little House on the Prairie. Well, his son, Michael Landon Jr., is the one along with Brian Bird, who was one of the executive producers for Touched by an Angel. And he actually wrote the Case for Christ movie, if you saw that. So you can imagine that combination, they're the ones that really kind of got this started early on. And, and so I kind of get a kick out of the idea that maybe Wind Calls the Heart may actually even outrun some of Michael's father's work in terms of, seasons, who knows?
Where can people find that?
windcallstheheart.com. That'll redirect to our store. And, Wind Calls the Heart, the TV show, is on the Hallmark Channel. Okay. But over the years, what we'll do is we'll create, quite a bit of bonus content, so we try to keep the DVDs that we have pretty exclusive to the material that you can really only find it on DVDs, because so many people are streaming things and everything else. And, our philosophy is if you can't hold it and you can't touch it and you're sure you really own it, because if the zombies came, you're not going to be streaming anything. But if the zombies came, you're not going to want to watch anything about zombies. You're going to want to watch the stuff that Edify Films distributes. Something's going to make you happy.
I hope so. I mean, especially where the world is today. And actually, you just wrapped up an interview with Timothy about what we're going to talk about today, and that's God of Heaven and Earth. So what is your role in the film? Just so everybody understands listening, what is your role with God of Heaven and Earth?
Well, I'm one of the producers and in the final leg of the project, and executive producer, and then of course the distributor, and then actually one of the guys that really helped kind of craft what you're looking at in terms of the film. And for those that don't know what it's about, it really makes a very compelling case as to what the Star of Bethlehem was. And there's a whole incredible backstory to that, with this, and we can get into that as the interview progresses. But this guy named Rick Larson is one of the most remarkable faith-filled human beings I've ever met, and he's brilliant. He's an attorney and was a very, very successful trademark attorney, but he was also a very strong man of faith. And he's one of these guys that he starts getting into something, he goes into it all the way. And he made this discovery that basically what he discovered was this man had a theory about what he thought the Star of Bethlehem might be. But I don't know that gentleman maybe recognized as much as Rick did, just because of Rick's familiarity with Scripture. And Rick ended up just prosecuting a case as he started making these incredible discoveries as to what the Star of Bethlehem was. But I think the most important aspect of it, and this is where I just when I started getting into this, where it was very convicting for my own faith, is that it establishes a definitive crucifixion date of April 3rd, 33 AD. In other words, if you're going to buy into this theory, there's really only one date that then works for the crucifixion. That's April 3rd, 33 AD. But what's amazing is that the end of the movie goes on to Israel and proves that an earthquake, right out of Matthew 27, for those not familiar with it, when Christ was crucified and he died, there was an earthquake that was so strong that a centurion said, surely this was the Son of God, just because of how impactful it was. Rick goes to Israel and proves that an earthquake happens in 33 AD. Wow. Right in line with this other theory. And what's so incredible about it is you can see that maybe there was an earthquake in, like, what was it, 60 years prior, and like over 300 years later, like there's only one suspect. And I don't care if somebody's an atheist or an evangelist, you don't get to walk away from this movie not convinced that an earthquake happened in 33 AD. Beyond that, it's really up to you. But it's well, you know what's amazing? Because you said you live in Ohio, right?
Right, I do, yep.
Yeah. You can't prove to me if an earthquake happened in Columbus, not in 33 AD, not to an exact year. But what's amazing is that God just set it up that in Israel, you can prove earthquakes to specific years. And without giving away too much of the film, I'm going to be screaming about this because it is a miracle. Just the fact that you can even prove it is an absolute miracle. It has to do with the Dead Sea, and it's the lowest place on earth. And where is it? 18 miles from Jerusalem.
Wow.
It's incredible. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rabbit trail. Before I do that, what is the link so everybody knows about the film? Where can they find it?
Yeah. Go to godofheavenandearthfilm.com. And, when are you broadcasting this?
It's going to be at the end of the month. They've asked me to hold the interview till the end of the month. So it'll come out.
Can I give you a different domain name?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where you want to go is go to godofheavenandearth.com.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to find where to get tickets. You'll be able to watch the trailer and see all kinds of things.
Okay. The rabbit trail. So don't at me. I'm a huge TikTok user.
Oh, okay.
I know I'm not allowed to, and I don't know if you are, but just a few weeks ago, TikTok was full of all September 23rd. The world was supposed to end. And there was, to your point, there was compelling TikToks, one after another, about some astrological things that were going to happen with astronomy and stars and the name of those stars. And like, if you spent enough time on TikTok, you literally were ready for Jesus to come home on September 23rd. He was going to call us all home. And the reason why I bring all that up is because we get a lot of content in the world that we're in, social media, Facebook, all of it, TikTok. And so people like me start to really lean in when somebody says, hey, the world's going to end September 23rd. And I've been around the church and I read my Bible enough to know that nobody knows the day or time. But at the same time, they made a very compelling case. And so I say all that to say that I think the difference between TikTok and just some content creators and what you all have experienced and put together is you all put together truth. To your point, in an earthquake, you can find that data. That's different than just some content creator in his basement trying to get everybody riled up about September 23rd. Sorry for the really long trail to get there, but you know what I'm saying? I think
no, I know what you're saying.
That's why it's important that there are films like this. It's important that we have content that's truth and not just content creators.
Yeah, well, I think it's the one thing about Rick is he, when he first put this together, he would go to university, and so he's a college professor, and so it was very important to him that he had a very factual presentation, that could stand up to the kind of scrutiny that obviously, whenever you're talking about anything like this, it's going to be prepared. You're going to get it. And the thing with this is the data in terms of the earthquake is already there. You can find where they're like an earthquake happened in 33 AD because of the science, but people hadn't really put them together. And what's unique about it is you've got two completely different scientific disciplines where you've got one going this direction, which would be astronomy, and then one going this way, which would be geology, and then finding where this intersects in agreement, at least if nothing else, with the date. And we all grew up reading about the nativity scene, and and everybody. And you always see it, right? Like going to somebody's house, the three wise men, and there's all these extrapolations, and it's so programmed into our heads that when you when you see something contrary, it's like, no, that wasn't the way it was on grandma's table or, under the tree. We think three wise men because there were three gifts. But we kind of gloss over a lot of things. Like, why did these guys travel?
Yeah.
What was so compelling to these guys? What did they see that made them travel 700 miles away? How does a star stop in the sky over Bethlehem? What was it that convinced them? What did they see in the sky that made them think King of the Jews? And the thing that's unique now, and it's this time where you can, the universe is just a great clock. We know exactly where Venus was at any given year you want to, because it's just math, and so you can go back and, and you can go see when what it looked like. Well, you can show it. Rick takes and he presents, here's what the sky looked like at this particular date. Here's where things were aligned. And this is what they may have thought at this point. And look what happened here. And look what happened here. And look what happened here. And as he continues, your mind is just blown. It is just blown. Oh my goodness. It's like, what would somebody say? Like, that much coincidence, that much coincidence starts to become the fingerprints of God. One of my favorite taglines with this is it's, God of heaven. It's, God's signature through time, because he basically, he almost autographed the universe with what he wrote into the sky. It's so cool. When
That's
people
amazing.
see it. Yeah. When people see it, it's really remarkable, but you're only able to see it now. Kepler tried, but Kepler, I mean, you can imagine you got a feather and an ink and a piece of paper, to try to do it. But, because originally it was his math that helped make a lot of this possible. But you'll see that in the film.
Hey everyone, this is Caitlin again. One of the biggest questions we receive is, how do you make money on a podcast? The answer that my uncle gives is, you don't. We set up unscriptedmerch.com to be a warehouse for products and partners to sell merch and spirit items. Each purchase helps this podcast. Find out more and order some merch at unscriptedmerch.com. Use code unscripted20 and receive 20% off all of your orders. Now let's get back to today's episode.
You're one of my favorite interviews already. Just cracking me
All
up.
right.
Seriously.
Let's celebrate with some water.
So let me ask you, from your perspective, first of all, and I apologize, I'm not in this industry. So when does a producer join a project? Did you see a script is probably not the right word. Did you see the science you're talking about and say, I want to produce this? How does that work? Can you take us behind the scenes a little bit?
Yeah. Well, my background was, and this would be almost more room for another interview, because there's a testimony to it. But my background was in publicity and promotion. Now, I had a company that I founded called Edify Media, and through a string of miracles, I ended up doing the publicity of the video release of The Passion of the Christ.
Right.
And I was working with 20th Century Fox at the time, and so I developed a tremendous amount of experience when they would have a movie that they wanted, whether it be faith or just faith friendly or family friendly, but when they wanted the Christian market to know about it, and I agreed, then I would go out and find a way to let people know this movie existed. And as I developed that experience, I ran into Rick and the material that he had, and this footage that he had, and I bought into it. I guess I should say this, because I think it's important. My background was, I joined the military, right out of high school with a very dear friend of mine. Mm. And we were very similar, from the same town, had all kinds of things in common. And unfortunately, we were together for half our tour. He got stationed in Kansas. I got stationed in Louisiana. Desert Storm broke out. He got shipped off the Desert Storm, and like 700,000 people went. There were only 100, I think, Army combat deaths, but unfortunately, he was one of them. Wow. And it impacted me greatly, as you can imagine. And I wanted to know, a lot of people have different ways of finding their faith. Sometimes it can be a very emotional response. For me, I sat there looking at my dog tags, and my dog tags, they say your name and blood type and all that, and then they'll say your religion. And mine said Christian. And I kept looking at that going, why do I believe that? That needs to be something that I really need to know, because everything that had ever happened to Lee had happened to me except death. And now it was the most important thing that happened to Lee. And I was, none of us, my dad used to say, none of us are getting out alive. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was about, I needed to have evidence. And God took me on a journey where there were a lot of things that convicted me. One was this prophecy, just Isaiah. When somebody reads Isaiah 53, for those of you that maybe are seeking or don't know, man, you'll think you're reading the New Testament. It's pretty amazing. But there's a number of things like that. And I just finally became very convicted. So I only say that to preface that this kind of material really speaks to me. Right. My dream is to make content, I see you got the headphones on your shirt. You might be a total music guy. I bring this up a lot. You might have 1,000 songs in your playlist. I was never that guy. I think I brought one album in high school. But in movies, I bet you I own over 1,000 movies. Wow. And movies to me are the most powerful art form ever created by man. I think you can change a person's life in 90 minutes with a film. And I don't think there's many things that you can do that with,
Truth.
And so with this kind of a movie, it's very important to me to be able to put something together that can entertain and at the same time help convict somebody in their faith, particularly if they're seeking like I was. Because, like I say, for some people, that's not how they get convicted. But for me, it was like I really wanted a logical, fact-driven reason to believe, and I find it interesting in a way that people that would, maybe ridicule our faith as, you're believing in something invisible, can't see it, can't taste it, can't touch it, can't smell it. And then they believe that we're just sort of just doing this because it helps us sleep at night, and not understanding that I don't have the faith to believe that an aardvark can turn into a stockbroker, over time. I don't have that they have more faith than I do. I don't have that kind of faith, and it's a lot easier for me to believe the things I believe based on the evidence that I see. But anyway, I digress. So with, we're a unique model in that because our heart is to do production, but we also do distribution. But then I also have the background of the promotion and the publicity. And so that we were, it was really, again, like a string of miracles that we were brought in. But I did have a long history, with Rick. And he's one of the most remarkable people that I've ever met, and I'm going to tell you why, just because it's a long interview and I think it'll be fascinating. But, sure. When you see the movie, it opens, he's tall. He's like 6'6", this 6'6", trademark attorney. He looks like somebody he looks like an action figure brought to life, like in those days. Right. Yeah. But then after he was working with it created the Star of Bethlehem footage, then he got into like an accident and had like a surgery, and then things got messed up, and he ended up having this thing called RSD, which is a chronic pain to a level that you and I cannot even imagine. Mm-hmm. Like the way he's described it to me, it's like he goes like, think about pain. My pain, it's like a jet engine on a runway. It's like that loud. It's like insane pain. Wow. And what happens, it's like your mind is trying to figure out what's going on. And your mind's like, okay, no, I got this. This will happen to you like in the middle of the night. What's going on is your leg is on fire, or you're slowly being lowered into a wood chipper, or somebody's pounding your legs with a sledgehammer, like horrible, horrible pain, right? And I have a thing called the Edify show, and we're going to release an interview that I did with him, probably going to be, me either up when this goes or a little bit later. But man, he had the most incredible prayer encounter where he was in Israel, and he's in Israel, like getting this footage, and these ladies recognize him, and they come up and they ask if they can pray for him. He's like, well, that's nice. They lay hands on him. He goes, wasn't really used to that. But he's like, that's nice. It's kind of a nice thing. Then a few months later, he's at a restaurant, and this college student comes up, very uncomfortable. Like it was way out of his comfort zone. Kind of like didn't want to do it. Finally just had to. And he comes up and he goes, hey, he goes, the Holy Spirit is telling me I really need to pray for you. Is something wrong? Like didn't know he was even sick. Didn't know anything about him. Then, and there's like lots of these, but these are the ones I remember that he told me. Then he's at another restaurant like months later, and this little boy comes up to him, he's like 8 years old, like stands at attention, goes, excuse me, sir, may I pray for your healing?
Wow.
And he's like, yes, you can, and so the kid prays, but he watches to see where he goes, and he goes to his parents. So he goes and follows, his parents were blown away. He's never done that before.
Wow.
Ever. They weren't even supposed to be there. They were on the trip somewhere. They stopped off the freeway, went to this restaurant, and this kid felt called to do that. People can believe it or not believe it. I've known this guy, for a long time, and I'm like, it's not like we were close. We're very close now, but it's not like we've been close friends at that time. But he's uncomfortable. He doesn't even want to talk about it because he knows he doesn't want anybody to go think like he's so fact-based. He doesn't want anybody, but it happened. What's he supposed to do? It happened. And then, so then I didn't even get to the punchline. So then it's like, whatever, I think weeks later, then over the course of 3 days, all of a sudden his pain just started dropping. Now it's not like cured, but now he feels pain like you feel, like I feel.
Yeah.
Not like, the insane pain.
Wow.
But can you imagine? Because there's a point there that I'll bet everybody that's listening missed. This miracle happened to him, began with prayer in Israel. What was he doing there? He was trying to continue to prove God's God's work, his faith in God. He was, to me, in this relationship, I feel like he's Paul. He's the guy that's getting shipwrecked and bit by snakes and imprisoned and all that. Like the suffering that he's pushing through, to me, lends credibility to, if nothing else, you can't deny this guy believes this stuff. Because he's working really hard and has worked really hard for decades through kind of pain that you and I can't. I would be in my bed, curled up in the fetal position, begging for my mom, for him to be pushing through that kind of thing, and then, like you can't at least say he doesn't believe it. He's my hero.
Wow.
He's my hero, to do that. So
that was what compelled you to do this the most?
No, what compelled me to do this the most is because I believe it's true.
Yeah.
Because I believe it's true. And I feel a responsibility, I'll tell you something too, people can think I'm crazy, but as this was coming together, I was like freaking out. I'm like, this is really good.
Yeah.
This is really, really good.
Yeah.
And I go to this prayer breakfast, and when I was there, they had this basketball coach at this college was there running the prayer breakfast. Gigantic, man. And I'm freaking out because this thing's, I got to tell the pastor, like, man, this thing's really turning good. I'm freaking out, but I didn't get to talk to the pastor. So then afterwards, I'm a social person, so I'm hanging out with people and I'm chit-chatting. All of a sudden, dude is like, standing like right next to me. And I'm thinking, that's cool. He wants to get to know me or something. Before I even get a chance to say anything, he reaches his hand and goes, I'm sorry, fellas. He goes, I hate to interrupt. He points right at me. And he goes, but I believe I'm supposed to pray for you. Like the same thing that happened to Rick. Now it's happening to me.
Right.
And I go, okay. And he goes, no. And he goes, dude, I can't even leave the building. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but I feel like I'm supposed to pray for you. And he goes, if it's okay, I'm going to anoint you with oil. And I was like, yeah, I'd never had anybody do that to me before either, And I didn't know what he's going to do, like he brought a little kind of little vial thing like that.
I got to make a bottle of olive oil or something.
But that was, there's been it's a nice confirmation. Mm-hmm. But I let people can, like I say, people can go and they can watch and they can decide, whether they think it's true or not. When we were in the military, we used to do this thing, we called it direction finding. So again, just to put it out there, I was a Russian linguist. I speak really bad Russian, so please don't anybody try to test me in that. I used to, and this is for the military. When I got out of the military, I tried to translate Russian for my church. If you translate the Bible, like if you look at the Bible, like the whole thing from Genesis to Revelations, you won't find the word aircraft carrier in there one time, right?
Really?
So
it's not in Revelation somewhere?
No, I couldn't find it. It's obviously it's in Russian, but my vocabulary was limited. There was only so much I could do.
Hey everyone, this is Caitlin. Did you know that the Unscripted podcast is a part of a larger group called the Unscripted Collective? The Unscripted Collective is a team committed to building websites, podcast coaching, and even has a merchandise warehouse for podcasters and organizations. Find out more at myunscripted.com. Reach out today to find out how we can help you in your organization too. Visit myunscripted.com. Now let's go back to today's interview.
But anyway, the job that we would do was from a helicopter. You'd hear somebody broadcasting, and you could tell by the technology now, who knows what they've got, but by the technology, you could tell, like, it'd be like a line of sight. that you'd go, they're broadcasting somewhere this way. Then you'd have another helicopter, and they'd go, they're broadcasting somewhere this way. And it was where they intersected. Then you knew that's where they are. The reason I bring that up, you've got geology, you've got astronomy. Both of them are claiming the same date. There's an intersection there. I think that means truth. Somebody else can watch it and they can decide what they want to decide. But to me, it's just, it's logical. It speaks to the scientific part of my brain that also, that one of the coolest things about this that I totally dig is that when you see the movie shows you not just what the Star of Bethlehem was, and it was more than one thing, but it also, at one point in the film, it shows you a glimpse of what it looked like to God. Now, you're going to have to kind of trust me on this, but it's like, the thing I love about this is that it was like, at least up to that point, it was something that God painted the sky for himself too. You know, I mean, the other thing that's incredible is this, if it's true, this means this entire thing, it's not just a star, it's a clockwork star. It was something that God put into motion since the beginning of the universe, that he knew that Christ, the date Christ was going to be crucified, before he even made the earth, before he even made Adam, he knew Adam was going to break his heart and what it was going to take to do it. It's just something so cool about the kind of love that God had, you know, for that, where to set all of that up from the very beginning. But like I said,
I think for me, I mean, I'm a dad, so when my kids were born, you know, I mean, I think anybody's held a small child and thought about how that small child came to be. Like, you know what I mean? That's a moment. Yeah. It's a spiritual moment. I don't know how you can just be like, yeah, that just happens. It doesn't just happen. But I do think that life and the storms of life can take us from a moment like that and beat us up and churn us around, and we can get inundated with life to the place where we forget that moment. And I do think, so this is a little bit, welcome to Unscripted. I think,
in the title.
I think I could probably turn on my TV right now and be reminded that this world's a mess right now. And everything that's happening in the world is a mess. And yet, back to your point, what you've been saying, honestly, this entire time, is it's not a mess. It's actually very much in God's economy, and we can't describe that. But I think that's why we need to know things like the Star of Bethlehem was there for a reason, and it's real and it's important. And things that are happening in even Israel right now, as heartbreaking and hard as it is for us to watch and hear and see and can't even understand, it's still very much, I believe, in God's plan. And maybe I'm wrong. I just think that I know how this book ends. And so did you find that do you understand what I'm saying? When you watch the news right now, how do you watch the news? Do you watch the news as someone who knows what you know now and has produced a film that tells you that God is still on his throne and very much in control and understands and knows? Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's a really difficult question. It's a heavy question. I'm curious.
It's sort of, you know, the way I watch news is unrelated to the film, with the exception of the way I watch news is rooted in my faith, and the film, you know, certainly helps strengthen my faith that what I believe is true and real, and I have something else that I can lean on.
That's
you know what I mean, in those moments where you're weak.
Right.
But you know, here's my philosophy on a lot of things. You know, when people talk about our natural resources, what are the most precious resource on this planet, and oxygen, clean air, clean water, it's humans. Right. It's humanity. Humanity is the most precious thing. The problem with humanity is it's losing its humanity.
To your humanity point, that's it. We all talk a different language, or we're talking in defense, because I'm defending something, and I'm talking a different language than you are. And when you are defending something, I'm not understanding what you're saying because we're talking a different language in defense of whatever it is. Anyway, different rant. You got to come back because we need more time.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
And you didn't get on to talk about all these different things, but man, I hope people have appreciated and respected what you've had to say, because I know I have. It's been just very informative, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your faith and the fact that you all are providing tools and evidence, I think is the word, because I think evidence is something that we all need, we all want. If I went to my church on Sunday and some guy that, was going through something was suddenly healed, like in front of me as it is in scripture, it would be a different world. But God works in mysterious ways, and sometimes we don't. I think that the evidence is there. We just don't see it sometimes. And I'm glad you all are providing films with historical references that we can point back to and say, look, I mean, it's all right there. It really is. Hopefully I've categorized that the right way. I just think it's important
great.
what you all do. I think the work that you all do is very, very important. And I think this film is very important, especially for such a time as this, when we're inundated with a lot of things and data and media and content. And it's really important to get back to the roots of what is truth.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is that if you believe something and truth can handle scrutiny because it's truth. And I think that's the thing that too often, that people think that, to have the right faith, you can't look or you can't check. And I think where things can get dark and sinister, where you can have that thing that you can reach out and remember for sure that it's there and it's true, and also lean back on that evidence, when times are hard. Our thing at Edify, Edify means to spiritually build up. I want to bring things that strengthen your faith, or I want to bring things that will entertain you without corrupting your soul. Right. And because there's things out there that are entertaining, but the problem is you feel like taking an SOS pad to your brain after that, or I want to bring out something that can inspire, that can inspire, whether it be fiction or whether it be truth or whether it be biblical stories. I would love nothing more. I swear, if God could ever grant me the chance, I would love nothing more than to take stories from the Bible, but do it in a way like my favorite movies, like Braveheart.
Right.
Like, let's make some things like that.
Yeah.
That would just be so phenomenal. But I appreciate you just having the chance to, giving us the chance to come on and talk to your viewers and tell them, encourage them, this is, the other thing we're into is quality. When you're going to watch this film, you're going to leave, it's going to definitely generate some interesting thought and discussion, for you when you get done with it. And again, you just go to godofheavenandearth.com and you can find it. And you can also keep an eye on us at edifyfilms.com.
Thank you.
And if you're into Wind Calls the Heart, because we are, go to windcallstheheart.com. And thanks for having us on.
Oh man, I was going to ask you the links. You ran down them for me. Is there a streaming option?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Go to edifyshow.com. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, go to edifyshow.com. When we have this on the video platforms, that'll be listed, obviously, of godofheavenandearth.com or edifyfilms.com. But, you'll be able to find them most everywhere, God willing, by Christmas, to where, wherever all your favorites, wherever you're generally streaming your content.
Well, it's important, though, that we get out and support the film in theaters. If the Eras Tour movie's over, and I may or may not have seen that over the weekend, but if the Eras Tour movie's over and people can get back to theaters again, God love Taylor Swift, it's important that we get out to theaters and see it. And that's in November, correct?
Yeah, November 5th and 6th for sure. So people just go to godofheavenandearthfilm.com or godofheavenandearth.com, and and then there'll be a link there where you can figure out what theaters it's playing at. I feel like the nice thing about a theater is it's an experience.
Right.
I was wondering about this myself because I was sitting in the movies, and a lot of people, they have like I sell DVDs, right? So I get it. A lot of people watch them at home. You got the TV, you got the surround sound. But I was in this packed theater, and I was looking around, and I realized why everybody was coming to the theater. And the reason they were coming to the theater was to have the experience of seeing it with people. Because we're pack animals.
Right. That's right.
Made in God's image, we love people. And it's to have everybody laugh when we're laughing, and it's an experience. One of the many things that made COVID so hard, right?
Yeah.
Is that we weren't able to experience life together. And so but I think it's a nice way to bring somebody to the movies that's Uncle Harry or whatever, that you can't normally talk about your faith, but he loves, like, dude's always on Discovery or National Geographic or whatever. He likes that scientific, heady stuff. Yeah, he might, I firmly think he's gonna enjoy this. This is not a movie where Uncle Harry is gonna feel preached at. He's gonna feel like he's getting presented with some fascinating evidence.
So the film is God of Heaven and Earth. It will be about the first week of November.
Yes,
you
correct.
said 5th and 6th.
It actually opens Sunday. So after church, bring your friends. November 5th. A lot of churches, you'll see it at November 5th on that Sunday, and then it'll play that Monday, November 6th. Yeah.
And the trailers I've seen are gorgeous.
The
cinematography, incredible. The cinematography is amazing. And we're not talking about a cheesy, half-done film. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. So well done from what I've seen.
Yeah, well, especially in the second half. A lot of it, Rick has to lay out his case. And so when you see the film, you have a case that's laid out, and then it's like, I was like, jeepers, criminy. I mean, it was like it felt like they hired a fleet of helicopters, zipping around in the Dead Sea,
Amazing.
But really it's, the one thing about it, it's the content, it's the content, that's, I think, what's going to carry people through it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, was this the Star of Bethlehem? And was this the earthquake that Matthew talked about, that the centurion witnessed and convicted him of his faith?
I love it.
Hopefully it convicts your audience of theirs.
Agreed. Man, Elliott, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Yeah.
I hope you come back and we can just chop it up about movies and talk about movie quotes.
You bet. Yeah, thanks again for having us on.
Oh, man, I wish you all nothing but success, and thank you so much. I appreciate your time today, and hopefully everybody gets out to the theater. Can you run down the links one last time for me?
Sure. All you got to do is go to godofheavenandearth.com, go to edifyfilms.com. We also have a show that we produce called The Edify Show. You can go to edifyshow.com.
Okay.
But really just godofheavenandearth.com. That'll get you everything you need for this film.
Well, I'm praying for it.
Thanks,
and
Brian.
That's not cliche. I know it sounds cliche. I truly am.
No.
I'm praying for such a time as this. I believe that God literally has this on his calendar for such a time as this. We really need this kind of information and data to combat a lot of the September 23rds of the world. So,
on that note, it's, such a time as this, remember, I would just speak to everybody out there. You aren't here on accident.
Right.
You're here at this time because God wanted you to be at this time, wanted you to exactly be the way you are, where you are, so, go hug your neighbor, go make somebody smile, just at the store, just spread some light. And because that's why we're here. This is, the darker it is, the brighter we're supposed to be.
Well, thanks for making my day, making me smile today. And I look forward to the film. And I look forward to seeing the film here in a few weeks.
All right, cool. Thanks, bud.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, you bet.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Unscripted Podcast. Make sure to review and share wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps out our mission to encourage everyone to live life unscripted. Until next time, keep living life unscripted.